online. Okay, so have people had a chance to look at minutes? Yep. Any issues?
No issue.
Want to move to and second? All in favor?
Aye.
And we're done. Okay. So since we are waiting, I think still for the USGS, why don't we get started on the, which actually we probably have some stuff to discuss on the well status.
Okay. All right, let's run page by page on this real quick. Going to page 2, which is section, the National Drought Monitoring. This is what the Northeast EWS has put out, and you can see the color coding, which shows that you can't see it here, but Nassau County and the East End are both continue to be abnormally dry. The center of Suffolk County is not. So we've been in abnormally dry for quite some time, and you can see what's going around in the area beyond us. Maine Maine a month ago, and the Lake Champlain area of New York had been abnormally dry. So that's an improvement. But down in this lower part, we're not seeing a lot of improvement. We are abnormally dry and continue to have a lot of that around us. The next page is the New York State current drought conditions. And their outlook, everything is normal. So, we'll keep putting this into the report, but I'm not too sure that it provides us, looking at the comparison between the EWS program and this one. That gives you two very different pictures of what things are doing in New York here.
Does it lead you to believe that, or ask what the DEC is actually doing?
Right. I mean, there's no information. This is with a completely uniform graph. There's zero information.
Yeah.
There's no granularity whatsoever.
Just bringing that up.
Yeah, no, there was a point in time where I did look out, and it had a description of what some of the input that they were using, and they were actually using the DEWS sound monitor information. There's no date on this, but so this was just pulled off on the 15th of April. That's the other thing here that is a little frustrating, is that they're
not dating they're updating. So okay, well, so
we'll just leave it there. But I don't.
A little bit of a mark.
We'll give it some time and see what may happen over the next time period. This looks really, the next page, which is the ranking by percentile from the history. This looks the way that we used to do what our guidance would be to the town board would have made this, that we would have said we're really
falling off the edge.
Falling off the edge. We may well still be falling off the edge.
Well, I mean, we're lower than ever.
Yes. That's a lower front since for the last 10 years
Since
anyway.
2016, it looks like.
Yeah. And to make this, again, one of the reasons that this has dipped down so far is that we are supposed to be towards the end of our recharge time period. And we didn't get a recharge per se. And so it looks really, really bad because it's being measured against what typically would be the point where we would be looking and saying, okay, we've got
ready for the summer.
Yeah, we're ready to take care of the summer.
So I'm going to hold you up for just a moment. I just wanted to welcome Pam and Caitlin from USGS. We could pause and come back to this.
That's fine.
Or as out of respect, or we could, I mean, because it seems like maybe there's a little more to be discussed. I think the important point that you have been making is that not only are we at a low, but we're at a low at an unusually early time of the year.
Yes. And the previous lows that are on this chart were basically in July.
Right.
So-
Summer
Yeah,
drawdown.
that with the summer drawdown, the drawdown was in progress, well in progress. So,
So
But-
I think it is something we want to come back to.
Yeah.
Come back to this. So I'm just going to table this particular discussion. We'll talk about how we want to, advise on
that's fine.
our drought status. So again, Caitlin, Pam, perhaps you could introduce yourselves, say hi to our committee. And the topic, just so everybody's on the agenda at the right place, is our 10-year baseline water quality study, which should come up 2026 to 2028.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Kate Finkelstein with the USGS Newark Water Science Center. I'm a hydrologist and my work has focused on groundwater and emerging contaminants. And
Yeah, and I'm Pam Riley, and I am the supervisor for the Integrated Water Quality Research Team here at the New York Water Science Center. And I'm based in, I'm based in New Jersey, but I work out of Troy. Our team's out of Troy and Long Island. So we're here today to just kind of talk about some of the decadal water quality that we were asked to discuss for this meeting. So I'll give it to Kate. She's the leader here.
yeah, so we are hoping and looking to form a proposal based on the previous study that was done 10 years ago. We are looking at the same wells and constituents to be able to compare what levels we had in the past versus what we're looking at now. We are also looking at what type of products and how you guys in the committee would like to receive the data in the end. And today I will walk through a few examples of that. So I will share my screen.
Do you
Yes,
have
it-
share?
So some of the major constituents that we see from other studies in Long Island and within groundwater, some areas of concern are 1,4-dioxane, or also forever chemicals known as PFAS compounds, perfluorinated compounds, as well as any other wastewater type of compounds, which were sampled for in the last study. So I think what was it, 6 wells that were studied, or 6 to 8 wells that were sampled last time? And the data,
Actually 9 wells.
9 wells, okay.
Plus there was an added well that was being sampled anyway that we kind of got included in the study as a freebie.
Yeah, so one of the ways we evaluate water quality over time is to resample groundwater from the same location. That way you're able to directly compare water quality at that exact same location over the course of time. And we do this for a lot of different well networks. Nationally, we do this for groundwater and surface water, but we also do it here in New York with the DEC through wells throughout the state. And this is something similar, like this proposed study would be something similar to that nature. And so what Kate is going to show you is some of how our data is kind of displayed out and shown to the public and publicly available for everyone to see.
Okay. Thanks, Pam, for summarizing that. I will jump into, let's see if I can figure out screen share on Zoom. We don't use Zoom too often.
Right in the middle bottom,
Okay, let's see.
you have to find the window.
This is the last study that they did, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, because it says
Mhm.
8 sites, just saying.
Okay.
Let's see. Is everyone able to see a map or
Is that the right?
Yes, we can see the map.
Again,
you can see a
Okay,
map?
great.
Okay.
Awesome.
So normally when I'm looking for water quality data from the USGS public sites, I start by looking at this Mapper website, and I can send this link to you all. There is a tab on the side for groundwater sites here. This is one of the previous sites, and I'm going to click on it and click Access Data. And that's going to bring you to another page. And here we have lab and field water quality samples. And there were 5 samples total in this location. And I'm going to click on that next. Okay. So this is the water quality portal. It's somewhat new to the USGS. We used to have something called NWIS. So we're going to fill out these boxes. We're going to pick New York.
I wonder if you're able to use the 3 dots in the upper right of your browser to enlarge, to zoom in a little bit on your screen.
So
Oh, let's see.
There should be a zoom in right there.
Okay.
Oh, now we
Did
can
that help?
Yep, great.
All right, great. Let me make sure I have that. Okay. So we have New York. We can skip these next few boxes. And we're going to jump down to the sample media and select water. And then we're going to select a date range. I selected the years that the study took place last time, so I just did an entire date range from 2016 to 2019. So I'll just start in 2016 and then to 2019. And we want to look at results for physical, chemical results. And then we're going to click download. And then it gives you an output of a spreadsheet. Is everyone able to see the spreadsheet on my screen now? Okay. So there's a lot of columns in the output, but we do have the results all the way back here in this column, but we have result qualifiers and we have how the samples were collected. And this is the way that the public would receive or be able to access the data.
The underlying.
Was there a question about?
No. I was just the underlying data, the
I
raw
have a
data.
question.
Yeah.
Doug does have a question.
I do have a question. So where are the elements that we have the test results for in that worksheet?
In other words, what are the analytes, right?
Could you go back to the worksheet?
The spreadsheet.
Okay.
So
So there'd
is that
be-
column CL?
There should be a characteristic group. So there'll be, let's see, with this new data, yeah, it looks like it is. So if you just enlarge that like
Yeah.
this. Yeah, result characteristic.
Right. So that's what's being tested.
Okay, so the first one, what is that?
That's a pharmaceutical compound. A lot of these are, as you see, like codeine, raloxifene, dimethylnaphthalene. You know, some of these I'm not sure exactly. You know, there's within that panel of pharmaceuticals, there are a ton of pharmaceutical and pharmaceutical degradate compounds that are included. So, and some of these you'll find if you metformin, you see down there.
Yep.
Keep going down.
Could you scroll down to where we see other compounds besides these pharmaceuticals?
I'd like to see caffeine.
Yeah, caffeine. You'll see nitrite in there. So what's in here is nutrients. Right, what was sample before last time? Nutrients, pharmaceutical compounds,
Metabolized product.
Pesticides. at some of the
pesticides,
wells.
right?
Mhm.
Right, and so each row of these results it's one, as you can see, each row is one result. So one sample at a well may have like 300 rows, depending on how many constituents were analyzed for that individual sample.
This is very granular data.
It is, yeah, and this is just data, and this is just how it's presented, and we just wanted to show you that basically, when USGS collects a sample, all of the sample data is available publicly. That is part of our mandate, is to make all of that data publicly available. So once collected, anyone can access it, and in this format, which we now call Water Data for the Nation. Or as people are more formally know it as Water Quality Portal. That's how a lot of people in the water quality community grab their data off the web. Right, and so when we do, like I said, when we do a study, we can tailor studies to depending on our cooperators' needs and what you're worried about. So a lot of times in Long Island, we look at nutrients to look at potential effects from septic systems. These pharmaceuticals can be an indicator of human compounds, right, in wastewater.
Yeah, wastewater indicators.
Yep.
And certain pharmaceuticals could be geared more towards wastewater than others.
So do your tests go through that entire panel of compounds and elements? The 300 rows of things you're testing for?
It depends, really. So if we do, say we're doing nutrients, and that has nitrogen and phosphorus, and the different forms of nitrogen and phosphorus, that can be anywhere from 5 to 10 different constituents, so 10 rows of data. When you start to add on the pharmaceutical compounds and pesticides, those are where it gets really long. So a lot of times when you're doing what we call a panel for that, it can be anywhere between 80 to 150 constituents in that one panel. And so,
Yeah, go
right,
ahead.
it's a lot of data.
It is a lot of data, and just so everybody's aware, our goal here is to right-size our study for a number of different reasons. One is to have valid comparison over 10 years, and then 10 years from now as well, so that we have the longitudinal information. So we do want to think about what we've tested previously. And another is that we do pay for each thing, and there may be some things we want to add, the PFAS, the 1,4-dioxane, that were not tested 10 years ago, but that we want to begin to introduce into our 10-year studies, which will increase the cost of the overall study that we're doing. So an important question that comes up is, let's say you were doing the pharmaceutical package. Is that just one package? Or is it possible to say, well, we don't need so many analytes here and
Would that affect the cost?
yeah, can we, to what degree is it customizable? That's what we're about here now, is getting the right study at the right cost for the right level.
Can we go back to a map so that we could understand where the well sites are and where the surface sites are that they sampled from?
Yeah,
We
and-
glossed over that. I don't
Lisa
understand
Lisa
that.
actually has on
This
her
is-
screen.
This is 2016, the last data that we got from them. So on this data, there were 37 analytes that you tested for. And some of the information, if I could screen share, I would, but
Yeah, are you on Zoom?
no. But I don't think for this discussion, it's really necessary to do
Okay.
it. But this is on our website. If you had your computer, you could get this up and see what they
And you
did
can
last
see the
time.
sites that
And
were
where the
actually
wells are
tested
sited.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, but the very first test that was done was right here in the center. And then I recall at that time, we actually did Atlantic Peninsula along with that first round. So, there was 3 different sites chosen in each of 3 years.
Just to take a look at that. Again, that was the last study. But
Yep. Okay.
Okay, so actually that question I left hanging. To what degree is the various components of the study, each package a package deal, and to what degree is it, are there smaller or larger packages we could be choosing from? Now,
I think they're muted.
are you guys muted? We're not hearing you at the
Hear us?
moment.
Can
I
you
hear
hear
you
us?
now.
Okay, so for pharmaceutical compounds, the machine that it's run on, which is a GC mass spec, they normally will run all the compounds at once, and it's kind of like preloaded.
Package.
The reduction, if we do a reduction in compounds, which they don't really like to do, it still would cost the same because the sample preparation and analysis is the same. It's just with, if anybody's familiar with the GC mass spec, it's just picking out the peaks to see which correspond to which constituent. So they don't really reduce the component list. I mean, they might have one with a minimal amount of reduction, but to be honest, it doesn't reduce the cost significantly. What reduces,
So we
yeah.
do the pharmaceutical package, we get to see caffeine and nicotine, it's
Yep.
all very suggestive.
yeah,
Other
right.
things. Okay,
Right. And so those top pharmaceuticals are always going to be like indication of human influence or anthropogenic influence. Our nicotine, caffeine, carbamazepine, and other diabetes drugs, which I can't remember the name of off the top of my head. But there's like 10 compounds within there, within that schedule, what we call schedule of all these constituents, that really are indicative of wastewater influence on groundwater systems. So, we've talked to the lab about this many times over the course of the last decade, and they will not budge on the price on that.
Okay.
So it's really like a compound class. Like, so if you're looking to target on like nutrients, there's pharmaceuticals, there's the perfluorinated compounds, there's 1,4-dioxane. There's other volatile organic compounds such as TCE or vinyl chloride, which are more primarily used as degreasers historically, and other compounds like that. So if you want to stick to what you had and then just add on one PFAS and 1,4-D, we're willing to work. Like, we can work with you, whatever you're thinking is the best way to move forward. But unfortunately, the cost doesn't really go down if you just by trying
it
to.
would have to be eliminating an entire class of
Yeah.
compounds that we're looking
Yeah.
at. So
Mhm.
that means that as a group, we have to say, we still want to look at volatile organic compounds,
Right.
we still want to look at nutrients, we still want to look at pharmaceuticals, we still want to look at
PFAS.
PFAS, well, and we want to add, we didn't look previously at
Right, yeah.
PFAS or at PFAS, and 1,4-dioxane.
I think you want to have, at a minimum, everything that was tested for in the past. So that you
Yes,
have
as a baseline, yep.
as a trend to go back and compare with previous tests. I noticed that there were different sampling points between 2016 and 2018. Does anyone know why that was the case?
Continuation, if I remember.
So, yeah, we did.
Just looking at Lisa's map.
The way the work was done, it was, there was a focus on 3 wells in the first year, 3 wells in the second year,
I see.
3 wells in the third year, in order to, and, with an effort to get a distribution across the island and get a broad sense of how things looked on the island.
I had 9 wells written down. So is that aggregate between the different periods, or is in that one?
That is aggregate across the different periods.
So
We
is,
didn't do all 9 each year, we did 3 and 3 and 3.
I see.
Right.
I mean, I would prefer, just from a.
And we could repeat in the same order.
Would be to have as many sample sites as possible so that we have as comprehensive a view of what's in the aquifer from a water quality point of view today.
You're right, and
And
we
this,
did, I think.
this last sampling, or the last information we got, 2016 through 2018, was focused on nitrates.
Well, the summarization, there was a summarization.
There were
based on
other
nitrates, correct.
constituents, but it was predominantly nitrates that was being shown throughout the well.
But you're telling me that in 2016, we had 3 wells that were sampled, and then in 2018, it was a different 3 wells.
Correct.
Yes,
That's
as we
correct.
moved across the island, that, the map we have it is numbered as to which wells were done which
Yeah,
year.
Lisa's map shows that. I'm just recalling from having seen.
Number 1, 2.
So again, in designing our study, clearly we want to repeat both the same compounds and constituents as before, adding in the 1,4 and the PFAS. What would be the impact of adding another well location? Let's say we were wanting to do 4 wells per year rather than 3 wells per year. Is that, we are on island already? Is that something that could be relatively inexpensively arranged to pick up 1 extra well of sampling? Is it the running of the tests, the costs of the running of the test on the additional sample, the issue? So for example, are we talking about the 33% increase in the cost of the analysis? If we add another well, we're again not getting sound.
Oh, this
There
has
you are.
happened to us before. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
now you can hear us? Okay.
Yes?
So, it really depends on like how the funding and budgeting works out. So what we've done for our stakeholders is to kind of chunk it out like that with 3 wells a year, depending on budgets. So if, say we work with a township and they only have enough money, like the analytics can be expensive. I'm not gonna lie, like for PFAS and 1,4-D, those are not inexpensive analyses to do. So in order to kind of spread that out, that's why people have done 3 wells a year. So it's no problem for us to do 4 wells a year. That's really like, we're already out there, we're doing our work. Like, it's really the cost of the analysis that would, and we work
drives the
with you
number.
to,
Okay.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
Right, and of course, we can't expect any additional funds, any federal funds, any matching funds to what we were putting in. This is on us.
it's almost like we need to start with the money.
Well,
But it-
right, and so
We're having
federal,
part of
matching
our
federal
conversation.
funds are,
Not
I'm gonna
that-
say iffy right now.
At best. Andrew,
I don't, we don't know what's happening with that, so I can't
Yeah.
promise anything.
yeah, we're not counting on anything.
Yeah,
I'm a little concerned about articulating the questions in a committee. It's like a committee writing a paragraph.
Well, okay.
What I'm wondering is, what does Joe think?
That's a good question. He's our
Well,
engineer, he's our
Yeah.
chief advisor, yeah.
I mean,
I don't want to.
Joe's actually closer to this than I am, certainly. And I'm wondering what your recommendation is on, I'd never heard this word before, the analytes, or the things we're testing for, compounds and elements we're testing for, and the locations, given the dollars involved. And maybe your answer is, well, if we're going to spend this amount, this is what I'd test for. If we're going to add X amount to that, 30%, 50% to that, this is what I'd add, and so forth. I'm really curious. And I feel more comfortable as a committee member reacting to his
Do keep in mind that Kate and Pam have said they can come back a number of times and talk with us a number of times. So this is getting us going, again, for a study in 2026, not in 2025.
Okay, but I feel more comfortable reacting to his
Absolutely.
recommendation and understanding after I understand his logic than I do
Us brainstorming it.
us brainstorming. I mean,
All right,
us
so
brainstorming it to a decision.
yes. So toss
So I'm
it
just
to Joe.
curious.
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation is that at minimum, as we've already, I think everybody's concluded, you have to pick up with where you left off in terms of the range of constituents from last time. Historically, I can tell you, there has been a sizable water testing effort on Shelter Island for many, many decades now, probably back to the 70s. about every 10 years, there's some type of study or another, and it's kind of developed into repeating this cycle that we have here. Between the 70s, 80s, 90s, there's been and I think it's actually been USGS nearly every time, if not every time, that's ran the study. And we have adapted based off of conditions changing, new tests becoming available. So baseline here is you have to pick up at minimum what you did last time. We did a good job last time with including many of the newer risk items, but we haven't seen a full list of panels that are available to us and the associated pricing. But I think in concept, you're trying to choose from the components that are most aligned with the issues that we're facing, wastewater influence, for instance, and then also trying to pick the components that you think are driving the problems that we are trying to manage for. So we should be aligning these panels, for instance, with components that are on New York State potability tests. If there are more that we haven't looked at, those would be the next that I would look to add, because they are what are driving potability MCLs for people in New York. Those would be the ones that we would be looking to develop policy for moving forward. So if you were to add your baseline, if there are new pesticides, for instance, that are on the county or state MCL list that they're tested for that were not in the USGS list last time, that's where I would look to.
I think also to add to that, the reason we want to go from where we were before to a new set of tests, what we call it the baseline to begin with, is to see the rate of change, if any, of any of the particular things that we're interested in, like nitrates or PFAS and stuff like that.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That's what the important part of the testing process is.
And keep in mind,
I have one more
yeah,
question.
please.
For you ladies, and that is, we hear a lot about PFAS, 1,4-dioxane, and pharmaceuticals. We're very familiar with those contaminants. Are there any other constituents on the horizon we haven't heard about yet, but that are coming, and that those of you who are sort of in the know can say, or this is what's coming, and this is what we should be looking at? Or we could, because PFAS took us by surprise 10 years ago.
Emerging contaminants, is what you're asking.
Emerging, yeah.
Let me just interject on that for a second also. We don't have to, we shouldn't be looking at this test as a granular study on everything that's in the aquifer, because it's inherently limited to a few sites.
Sample sites, right.
So, that's a driving theme in what panels you are, I think, ultimately selecting, because you're not combing through every well. And if the risk is wastewater influence, that means that they are entering the aquifer essentially as micro point sources. They're going in through septic systems peppered around. So we should approach this study with that theme in mind, that you can get granular. We use this test in the past to create the nitrate heat maps. Those, I think, were helpful in understanding wastewater influence. But we should not be looking to get a level of data about this or be seeking constituents that perhaps are not expected to be widespread, but rather we would expect to see, in peppered isolated areas throughout the island, because, the pharmaceuticals are a great example. They would only register if that person was on that particular, they might be in an area with influenced by wastewater, but the community in that area is not on that prescription, so it's not entering the wastewater stream in that area. But adding those panels across, 7 or 9 wells would tell you if it's perhaps, something that's entering the waste stream in general, but we wouldn't be able to draw conclusions on a policy level about how to address this area in a particular neighborhood, because it's never going to be that high caliber and accuracy of the data set.
I'd like to get an answer to the question I posed.
Oh, sorry, Elisa.
That's okay. I understand where you're coming from, but I would personally like to know if there's something that we should be thinking about.
Definitely.
So back to you.
Let me know when you can hear us.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Because I think sometimes the mic takes a little bit. So, kind of like to the same point, there is, there are things that I could suggest that may not have full fully developed analytical methods yet, right? So things like microplastics or 6-ppdq, which is a kind of a from degrading rubber or tires that's found in surface water. People are now looking for it in groundwater. People are also looking for microplastics. And I was just thinking about some of the contaminants that EPA looks for in their unregulated contaminant monitoring rule. Now, I don't know that list off the top of my head, but I can look through it and make suggestions. But there are things that one of the things to keep in mind for some of these contaminants that aren't yet on your radar is because the analytics may not have been fully flushed out yet. So like that happened with PFAS. Like PFAS was identified by the EPA through their unregulated contaminant monitoring regulations, which they did across public supply wells. And then standards were set for PFAS that were lower than the analytical methods could get to at the time, right? And so now I think that over the years that has now caught up. And so laboratories are now able to analyze and reach that lower detection limit that is actually what the MCL is. So to answer, like, it's a really broad way to answer it. But I don't know if like you going down a road of like looking at like a contaminant that we may have a problem with in a couple of years may be the answer or the best way to spend your money right at this point in time.
Right.
Right.
Lisa may
It was-
not
it was a
also-
theoretical question.
Right.
Yeah.
Lisa-
No, I get it. And I've gotten that from a lot of wastewater or water treatment facilities looking to answer that exact same question because some of them are really proactive.
And also, we'll be at it for some time to come. So Lisa's sensitizing herself to what she has to think about in the years to come. So,
But the 6-ppd and microplastics are the ones that I think about. Like when I hear the buzz and I think what's going to be big in the next year or two, those are the two that I
Could
think
you
of.
repeat that? 6 what?
6-ppdq. It's 6. Oh,
Or spur?
something quinone. It's a rubber derivative.
Thanks.
Rubber
I'll look that up
Mhm.
for my own edification. Thank you.
But mostly that comes
microplastic.
off of like tire. It comes off of road runoff, and it usually is at its highest during first flush in surface water. But recently, people have been starting to look for it in groundwater, especially to see if it's in unconsolidated sediments within like sandy systems, like we see on Long Island. But I don't think we have enough information on that yet.
So, but of interest in there, you also mentioned microplastics, which is
Yeah.
sort of newer on the horizon for everybody and something we've tuned into because it's in our bottled water. So.
Yeah, right. And that's one of the things to really think about. And we think about that a lot here at the USGS because we are a methods-based organization. So like if you're collecting a microplastic sample, but you're using a plastic bottle to do so, like, are you actually like contaminating your sample or not? So we're really thinking about how do we collect those samples so we don't contaminate it? How can we make sample collection consistent across different disciplines so that data is comparable? And like I said, there are multiple methods to look at microplastic data at the moment, from whether it's particle size, just by doing counts, like by microscope, or it's using different machines like some infrared, like called an FTIR or Raman spectroscopy. So there's a lot of different, like, people are finding it everywhere. Once they look for it, they find them. But then the analytics are not comparable across the board. So I think that's going to be a few years out too. Yes.
Well,
That's-
Doug is starting to ask the money questions, but I think that we need to maybe not necessarily do that in the context of the meeting and put them on the spot, but to have, a sample proposal to take a look.
Range, so we know what we're.
Well, okay,
As I recall, I mean, what this was attempted to do was to set a baseline, and it was at the beginning of the use of IA systems. Somebody said, okay, we were challenged in the WQI and the WAC, well, does it really reduce the nitrates in your wastewater? And we couldn't find a lot of studies that said, yes, look, this is what it was this year, and then 5 years later, it was lower in this. So the core selection was, what could we do a study and prove to a level of whether or not we're seeing a change in the basic IA system controls? And then we said, okay, we should look at other items as well in it. We said, okay, let's make this a nice, cover a lot of the big bases, a lot of the big items. We have to make sure, I think, in what we do now in the future is that we don't abandon the core items that we thought were important 10 years ago. And that's important. And it, I think it's fine to think, okay, how about if we did 4 wells, whatever, that as long as we don't interrupt the ability to say, let's see how the baseline has changed.
Right. And
That's got to be job one.
Right, and speaking to that, so again, we're generally in agreement that we are looking to repeat what we've done previously.
Yes.
We're generally in agreement that there's a couple of things that are on our radar to add. The other that we do want to understand costs, and I think that'll be done on paper and in email and in proposals. I mean, unless you wanted to toss out some numbers, but I'm not suggesting that for the course of this discussion. The other thing that I think just has to be introduced into this discussion is that Pam and Kate are asking us about work product, about besides the raw data, what do we get at, what do we want to see out of this? Now, one of the things that they suggest is kind of like a published scientific paper with one of the things that come to my mind is sort of trying to keep things simple. How do we get what Greg was looking for, which is that comparison, how are we doing over the course of 10 years? And, we had a simplified presentation, a PDF and PowerPoint presentation of what was found. For example, you could easily pull out of what was found last time that about half our wells were in the 5 to 10 milligram range for nitrogen. And so, alerting us to that we're approaching MCL.
This is very easy to read. The last report, it's easy to read and well done.
Right. We as technical scientists in this particular field, we're looking for how to simplify the information. And now we'll be looking for how to simplify the 10-year comparison. So, yeah.
My suggestion is that perhaps the USGS tables a scope for the work. And then we get to review that scope, and then we get to brainstorm and decide what we think makes sense, incorporate things that we like, and then ask questions as to, well, what about this or what about that, so that we end up with the scope that does the work that we want done and produces a report that displays the data in a way that is usable for us.
As an approach, absolutely. The purpose of this discussion is to kind of see it from Pam and Kate's point of view and get from them, what's natural for them to create. So I'd like to actually just turn to that dichotomy between a published paper, scientific paper, which, will speak to scientists, and some sort of a presentation that gives us pulls out some key elements and gives us a sense of movement from over the course of 10 years. How do you see, do you see the possibility of doing the latter
And adding to that, can you do the latter without first doing the former?
Mm-hmm. And Kate, you were with us 10 years ago. You were involved in there was a published
It was a presentation.
paper, and there was also a presentation. So,
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Okay, great. Sorry, I keep checking. So yeah, so we have done things like we call them trend mappers, where you kind of show whether the concentrations of certain constituents are going up and down, and that we have that done on a national scale, and we also have done that for localized studies. But you're right, we do need some sort of a publication that associates with that mapper. So the mapper cannot have interpretive data in it unless it has a published citable report. So that's the difference. So if you're looking for us to put an arrow that's going up, then we need a report. If you're looking just to have a mapper with concentrations on it without any kind of interpretation, that probably doesn't have to have a report.
What's the difference? The report.
We would not, without interpretation, we would not be saying that like, so you know how you were saying that you had nitrogen or nitrate hotspots and how that's moving across the basin? We would not be able to show that. That would be that's what we call an interpretive product. So that's where we look at the science and we look at the results, we do interpretation on it, we run statistics. It is a peer-reviewed product. It gets 2 scientific peer reviews from our colleagues, and then it goes through a very rigorous peer review and editorial review.
How
Now,
long is the peer review process?
it's not sure. It can be anywhere from 6 months to a year, depending on that's with the writing time. So that is something to consider. No, I just want to tell you that, you know, we are USGS. We are non-regulatory. We are not for profit. We work to recover our salary, but we are we do not sway data in any way. We only report on it as we see it. So that's just to kind of give you what our mission is. So normally with that, when we collect data and we report on it, we want to make sure that what we're saying is scientifically defensible. And that's why that peer review process is so important to us when we do
It's important to us too.
when we have
I think
published papers.
we definitely want objective information, scientific.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of people come to us to do work for them, because we know that other people can go to consultants and get, you know, similar work done. But we historically have done presentations in the past just to present data, but usually when you have 2 or more rounds of data, like this would be the case, you would want some sort of citable product. To even though it's very scientific and it's only meant for like science people, you can actually cite it on your committee page or to move forward as justification, depending on what the results show. You know, I'm not saying I don't know what the results will show.
We're going into this intellectually
yeah.
honest, so we don't have an agenda here. We just
Yeah,
want
yeah.
the information.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're here to help with, and that's what those products, the difference in those products from us will be. And so one of the things that we can do when we scope out the proposal is really to kind of show you, Kate already showed you how the data is publicly available no matter what. Whether we sample for it, when we sample for you, all of that data will be publicly available. We include those costs of quality assuring that data, so it's online. And then there's another option. It's kind of like a mid-level, but it's still not interpretive. It's called a data release, where you can put like maps in it. I'm going to show them what a data release looks
I have
like.
one pulled up right now.
Okay.
Let's see.
So there's the data release, and then there's the interpretive kind of mapper. So this is the data release.
Well, you got this PowerPoint,
Right.
and then you got a paper.
And there was a paper done.
That's kind of what we want, right?
That is
Yeah,
kind
the
of what we
paper
want.
was, I think the paper, like the results for Shelter Island were kind of rolled into a regional paper by Irene Fisher,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Is everyone able to see my screen? It has a dark blue and light blue bar across the top.
Yep.
Okay, so this is an example of a data release. I tried to look for one that has similar type of constituents to the ones that we will be sampling for. And it is just I would say a nicer format to look at the data in compared to the other way that I displayed before. So we have a summary of the project on here, and then down below are files of all of the data. And I think of this almost as like a package or a book. So you have like a table of contents that's going to tell you like how many sheets you have and what can be found in each of those sheets. And then you have sample lists and field data to explain like which wells were sampled, the dates they were sampled on, the constituents they were analyzed for. And then you have your actual data, and these are all in spreadsheet CSV format. So they are easily clickable and downloadable. Not going to save that right now, but you can easily download it. And actually, I will pull one up just to show what it looks like.
Yeah, and we normally do these types of things for PFAS or PFOS, however you want to say it, for the perfluorinated compound data, because what's really important with this data is the QA/QC. So blanks and replicates and kind of like method blanks at the lab to make sure, like when we work with partners, especially with drinking water systems, they want to make sure that those blanks are clean, right? Because if there's a hit in a blank water, it could be like affecting the actual environmental sample concentration. So that's why we publish these as that package, and people really like it as that package rather than having to go to the website and kind of grab these files individually. And this has all the metadata, what we call metadata associated with it. So all of these column headers are defined. People can pull this into models, right? Like it's almost like a method section of a report.
So this is augmenting the information that we already have, right?
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this is just, and we have data from 2 at least or 3 water systems that go to a greater level of constituency that we are also going to compile information from. The question is, what are we going to do with this? What do we want to do with this information? Because we have a lot of information. What do we want to do with it?
Synthesis is always.
It
the
hasn't been
result.
integrated. No, not like.
So I think that that's kind of important if we're going to spend the money, is to have an end goal.
Right, which is, I think, why I wanted to make sure that we got to the idea that we're looking for perhaps the report plus then a presentation that pulls out an interpretive presentation. So that we do have, at least when we're looking at the decade over decade material from the USGS, a sense of what it's showing in terms of trends.
Right.
This kind of reporting and analysis on this scale is akin to, your annual physical
Yes.
with your general practitioner. So without the analysis and the conclusions drawn, it's not as helpful to us. I totally agree, especially when then left to, the various committees, town board members. The results perhaps aren't very helpful if it's just data.
And the interpretive material that you had on the screen just a moment ago proved to be more and more interesting as the years went on between 10 years ago and now. So that after we did the study in the center, coming back and looking at what the USGS had earlier found, really gave us a sense that oh yeah, we're looking at the same thing. We're looking at something,
Okay, Kate and Pam, the analysis that would potentially be done for this report, would it reference the previous data collection efforts, or would the analysis be limited only to this current data set? I think we lost you
You're
again.
muted.
No,
You're-
we're not.
now you're thinking.
It's like we have to talk for a few seconds before you hear us. No, we could do the previous 10 years ago. Is that what you're talking about, 10 years ago?
Yeah, I'm wondering if just comparative analysis between, your data set from the last effort could be included in the analysis with this new data set as well, because that would be, I think, of a great value to the community, is to not only have this snapshot we're doing now, but, to be able to elaborate on previous testing efforts, because that, from my recollection, it's not typically been done when I look at reports from, the 70s, 90s. Usually the conclusions are simply based off the data set that they collected. But now that we've invested several times, particularly with similar test panels, it would be of great value for us to draw those connections for trends, for changes, and want to make sure that that's available.
In 2016 and 17, that's when we started the base.
Right.
Basically, it would be that data set
Correct.
compared to the new data set.
In other words, can you work with us on trends analysis in this fashion, long-term trends analysis?
Well,
From your data, and with the expectation would be from your data only, yeah.
Right, it's only 2 samples, right? So you'd have to,
Your 10-year
tailor.
point, right?
Yeah, yep. So yes, though, we would compare previous historic to current results. That would be the goal of the analysis.
I think that would be the most beneficial for us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
At this
It's
point.
3 samples.
3
Within-
years,
within
3 years
every 3
repeated,
years.
in 10-year intervals.
10 years.
3
With
3
2
years.
samples in that we had a previous study done, and now this would be one that is done.
And not to be
10.
too optimistic about our lives and all, and then thinking in 2026 to 2028, that's meaningful to the people who are sitting here, whoever we happen to be.
Yeah, right.
Andrew?
And the analytical methods, 2016 to 2017 to now, are sufficiently consistent to render those comparisons valid? That's a question.
It's a great question. We have, sometimes they are a little bit different, but we have methods of dealing with that for different constituents. So for nutrients, they would likely be the same within the last 10 years. Not much has changed.
so it means
Sulfate. But what I wanted to, is there a chat in here? I was thinking that. Okay, so what we're going to do is put in the chat is some of our publications that have done exactly this on the national scale. And so they have decadal mappers, and they also have decadal, the methods that they use to look at data on a decadal scale to evaluate it. So sometimes our networks have gone from 1970s to up until now. So there's a lot more data. But you can see that they look at it from every 10 years and as a whole. So I just wanted to make sure that
that's good.
to pass that along, because that's something that we could do just on a smaller scale. So I will chat this to you. But yeah, and there's a way to deal with methods, and there's also differing methods, and there's also a way to deal with differing detection limits too. This is something we routinely face with analytical data.
So if you put something in the chat, Jessica, just if you could capture whatever gets put in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I think that this, overall, I don't want to cut this short, but at the same time, this is to give us a sense, we're going to come around. We're not yet establishing the studies. We're going to, Joe and I, or whoever else wants to join, will meet up again with Pam and Kate and, refine getting from them a proposal, or initial proposal, something to work with.
So back to my earlier comment about wanting a recommendation from Joe about the scope,
Yep.
about the deliverable. And when I say scope, it's well points, it's contaminants,
Packages, yeah.
also the nature of the structure of the deliverable, the extent to which the trends or comparisons are valid and so forth. Is that what we see next? A recommendation from Joe?
Yeah, and then essentially, Kate and Pam will work to craft this initial proposal, and that's what our initial meeting was about effectively was, what are the next steps? We're going to develop the scope, and then I will deliver that to this committee and the town board, or whoever would ultimately approve. It sounds like this committee would be the next step to massage that a little bit or collect feedback, and then we can.
Okay,
push the board.
if that comes back with different scopes with different price points, that's okay too. For me at least.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's what we normally do. We kind of like buffet style it because some people are more interested in just the data. Some people really want the interpretation. Some people want the whole kit and caboodle. So we normally will present it with multiple options and then we can discuss it. And, we can have multiple conversations about this. We're open to, sit for more time if needed. We understand that maybe you might not have all.
We're losing you. We just started losing you.
Yeah.
You got very quiet.
Oh, no.
There you are. There you are.
Darn. Okay. All I was saying is that we could menu option the proposal and we'd be happy to meet again to talk through anything.
So right now, Joe, you're going to take the helm on it,
Yeah.
and we'll get that info.
Yeah.
I just wanted to address, when Greg was talking about, this first study was about looking at nitrates with regards to
It wasn't just.
IAs.
It was not just that.
No, all right, not
The focus
just.
was his IA system.
Right, it was to support IA system.
Among
I
its
would like
goals.
to suggest too that right now, it's also to support people's decision-making when it comes to how they treat the water that's coming from their well, to make it potable. So it's wastewater, looking at wastewater and anthropogenic problems, but it's also how to mitigate people so that they can drink their own water. And I think that that's what, am I wrong? Do we?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. We're looking at something to substantiate treatment from the
No, we're looking
wastewater
at the
side.
base.
And we're looking also so that people can
Well, and also to
figure
have,
out how to drink
have
their
a
water.
broad set of facts about
Right,
what's.
but I mean,
Nine
there's two
wells,
purposes, I think.
It's 9 wells and I think they're static wells.
You're still
They're
gonna
not
need to
huge
do
wells.
your own Suffolk County Health.
Everybody's
Department
home
testing
is
and
actually
specific well.
really that's an active well system. That's what's happening at the screen into the house.
Right.
This is, I think these were not static.
not.
There's no withdrawal happening here.
I think they pumped them.
Yeah, they do, they flush them,
Yes,
but there's
you-
nothing like a,
But there's still
They're
indicators.
valid.
and it's 9 wells.
And one of our sites was not even a well, one was a bore
Yeah,
that they did
a
at
borehole.
Crescent Beach, so,
Borehole system.
yeah, so, which gave us a picture of what was going on around the
Very, very shallow. I mean, basically.
Crescent Beach.
I guess what I'm getting at is there's a couple of purposes in doing this.
Right, it would.
Provides guidance in many ways.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, thank you very much. If there are questions people want to put out now, but we have the opportunity to communicate with Pam and Kate several times from here. And back and forth this and get this right size this. So unless we have any more questions right now, thank you, Pam and Kate. You're welcome to stay or we'll come back to you and continue the conversation and take it to the next step.
Yeah, thank you.
We did want to, we want to circle around, and I promised to circle around to the well status rainfall report, because you do have an important topic on that. But before we do that, briefly, Joe, could you comment on the the USGS saltwater intrusion study specifically, where we're at with that, what we know about that?
Yes, that's also with USGS, and so what will be included in this study thus far is the installation of the one very deep well that will transit the freshwater lens and into the saltwater lens. It's part of a larger regional study, so USGS is placing one of these wells, or agreed to place one of them on Shelter Island for this study and for other purposes. So that's going to come hopefully at no cost to the town. But we're working with USGS to find a suitable location for that site. It's Similar to the other USGS wells that we have across the island, it's small and non-invasive, but site selection is a combination of what's available to us and some of the geologic features around it, its placement relative to the periphery of the island and whatnot. That's going to be included in the saltwater study. And in addition to that, which will be included in the proposal, are surface readings, a specific type of electro measurements from the surface that will tell us where the saltwater interface will be. And we're still working with USGS to identify how many of those and where those will be to conclude the study. So
Now, just to be clear, this was also done 10 years ago, separate study from the one we were just discussing. What Joe has just described is kind of like an MRI for the island. It's sending an electromagnetic current through
Right.
the ground across
Right.
a couple of fields worth of
Geophysical.
space
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
to get, and giving you a more three-dimensional image of the saltwater freshwater interface, since they have different conductivity.
yes.
Um,
And those will be repeated, but not on a large time period. They'll be repeated over the course of a few weeks or a few months to see how the interface is changing,
Right.
but they are not permanent. So once,
They'll collate that data.
yes,
Right, and as far as 10-year comparison goes, here, things have gotten far better technologically. So they have a much higher resolution.
Much better,
They did,
yes.
then they can get into smaller spaces and do the work in smaller spaces. So it won't be exactly comparable. I think that what we got 10 years ago felt very rough. It was hard to make policy decisions based on the degree of precision and they wanted the testing well, in fact, in order to calibrate the information they were getting from the electromagnetic studies, to give it some, to prove out what their measurements were in the old-fashioned way of having a well and sending a signal straight down that well.
right. So the update
and-
really is that this is still active dialogue in developing the scope of this study. But this is to answer the question that was asked several years ago now, to study the relationship with saltwater, particularly at the periphery of the island. So we're still working to that end.
And looking toward changes over time. But the last thing that I think is missing from what we just discussed was, and that piece of things involves a yet to be determined cost.
Yes. Yes, but that cost does have some budget already allocated from previous budget years.
The well is not costing us any.
Right, correct, right. So this is,
Bigger study.
Right. So we have, and so with that sort of just basic information, let's also rope in, we have Anita Brush with us. The Suffolk County Health Department testing, last time we got together, we voted to focus whether the board budgets reimbursement funding or not, to focus on Menantic Peninsula specifically in an initial phase of work for a concentrated program of Suffolk County Health Department testing, inviting people to, if they're, requiring people to share their data on a specific house basis. If they are asking for reimbursement, we can see the data on a street level no matter what happens, because we can always see the Suffolk County Health Department testing on an anonymized street level. So with respect to that, Joe, just if you could comment on where we are in terms of being able to receive data from people.
yes,
Website.
by the end of the week, I'm hoping that email address will be set up. So folks who have a completed water test are able to send their results in, and we'll begin collecting the water test data, private well water test data.
And then Anita, can you hear me? Are you online? Can you unmute yourself and join us?
And that is totally voluntary and not in exchange for any sort of reimbursement. It's a data donation, so to speak.
Right. Well, we can return to the question which we did pose to the board, and I don't think the board has taken up the question, but we did pose to the board approval of the reimbursements. I think that reimbursement concept partly depends on how expensive the saltwater intrusion testing that we do at the USGS turns out to be. But Anita, you had a chance to meet with your board this weekend, no?
Yes. So just to be clear, I'm no longer the president of the Menantic Peninsula Association, but I am following up on this water testing. And the board has approved a continuation of trying to get water tested in the Menantic Peninsula, even if we have to do it without reimbursement. And so we would like to contact the Suffolk County Department of Health and arrange for them to come out and test wells in a small amount of time. In other words, if we target the beginning of September or the end of August to try to create interest and get people to sign up for that. We will say that we do not expect reimbursement at this time, although it would be lovely to do that, and that it's up to individuals to share their results, but we will encourage it.
And Meg, you had made the comment that it was best to do, I wasn't absolutely sure of why, but you were saying that it was best to do it when the homeowners were not at home?
No, when they were at home.
When they were at home?
So, yeah, my thought was if they ask people in July and August to sign up for the testing, they'll be out for the summer. When the health department comes out to do the water testing, they will need access to the home and they want someone there while they do all the testing and sampling. So if you do it while everybody's out, there's a better chance of people following through.
So then, Joe, does it seem like targeting late August is a possibility with?
Yes, the most important thing to do now is to have the residents register and sign up for the well test program.
And would registering and signing up for the well test program be part of what we're adding this week to the website?
No.
So they would register with the Menantic
All of this is done
Homeowners Association?
straight through the county. The link to the testing program is, as you know, has been advertised certainly in the past before by the town, but you would go on the website for the health department private well test program. They have instructions there. They have an FAQ about how to enroll and what happens next. But the communication that Anita should be sharing is that the most important thing is have everybody sign up now. When the registrants begin to populate on the health department side, they will then begin to coordinate the sampling. So once they have a more clear picture of how many people have enrolled, then they can begin to contact them about, a 2-week window perhaps that they can come and do all of these samples at
So I
once.
just don't want the can of worms to slip away.
Right.
So I know having just done that same process for my own home and for my mother's home across the road, you're sending in a check, or I guess you can do it online as well, but usually you print out a form, you would need your lot number from your property tax bill, and you write out $100 check and you send it in. Now, we would need to make Jason Heim or whoever at the Suffolk County Health Department aware to expect like this range of property tax numbers or somehow this, that for them to know this is Menantic Peninsula, you're trying to wait and pool and do it more efficiently rather than.
And also do it expeditiously,
Expeditiously
so
and
that
also get
people don't have to wait 6 months.
So what I'm hoping for is that we can simultaneously speak with Jason Hines or whomever we have to speak to let him know that we are trying to arrange this at the same time as we encourage people to sign up. We've already prepared or are in the process of preparing something that will go out both by email and that we intend to distribute to every house in the Monantic Peninsula. But we want to emphasize that it's a coordinated testing and that what we hope to find out is about our neighborhoods within the Monantic Peninsula. We're trying to say it's somewhat different than just sending in your request for testing, in that we hope to find out something about what's going on. What I have a question about is, I guess I didn't realize that you would get street level data. Could somebody explain that to me?
All of the information in this program is publicly accessible, but not at your street address. So the private well data, as is all private well data collected by the health department, regardless of the reason, whether it's this program or other tests, other qualifying tests that they sample, are available through the FOIL program for release. But it doesn't tell you your street number. So if you were to request it, or if they were to share it, the most basic, most detailed level of information that's released is the street name. So if you live on a long street,
You're very anonymous.
you're very anonymous, but it's also not as useful from an analysis standpoint. If you live on a short street, well,
I don't understand. I thought that the people are gonna come in and say like a refund.
there's no refund associated with this.
If they choose to,
There's no reimbursement associated with this effort. At this stage is the individuals paying for the test, and if they choose to share their specific house data, they can on a voluntary basis. Other than that,
that's right.
they're on their own, so to speak.
So this is different than what we approved.
But I think what Greg is saying, and I know what he's,
Reimbursement.
if somebody chooses to be reimbursed,
There's currently,
You're saying that's not an option.
no reimbursement program.
Currently,
No
currently is the
reimbursement
important word.
program.
We have sent a letter to the board asking them to approve.
so we are waiting for approval for this.
Correct, for
Okay.
approval for reimbursement,
Right.
which we are not going to wait for.
We're gonna go ahead with
We're
the
going to
testing.
move ahead, and then if the town feels that it's appropriate to encourage, to encourage more sharing of data or to reimburse people who feel this is a hardship or who might be motivated by being reimbursed, we encourage the town to sort of have a hand,
And that reimbursement includes house number
you
27.
have to have the house number, correct. So,
It's important
again,
to
we're
really
continuing by
clarify
plan,
that.
but we're also saying, let's not get hung up here for $100. So, the only other
Can I
thing.
ask one more question?
Sure, I'm just going to make a quick comment in relation to what you said. Could maybe you encourage everybody who sends in their application to write the words Monantic Peninsula in big letters at the top? Just so that when it comes into Suffolk County Health Department, it's just got Monantic Peninsula on it. And then Anita
Yeah.
and then Meg.
If for purposes that would be useful to Shelter Island, some of us have testing going back 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Can that testing be submitted as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you asking for reimbursement or just to?
There is no reimbursement. I keep saying that because I want it to be clear. The email that will be set up to collect this data is purely voluntary, and it can come from an address that's not on a peninsula. It can come from a center or the Heights, or wherever. We do not discriminate on who is able to send it in, and
understand.
there are there's no compensation for participating in that. And
I think I'm just making sure that that is not what
Yes.
Anita is asking.
right,
That's-
so if you have an old test, that's fine, send it in. And they also wanted to be clear that there is no predetermined or pre-scoped analysis right now on what we would do with that data, because we don't know what we will collect. So it's not that if you share your data, you're actively participating in a particular study. It's just the start of voluntary data. Well,
Having a concentrated amount of voluntary data available to us for subsequent analysis within Monantic Peninsula to get a picture of their neighborhoods.
So Joe, this is going to be, where will this portal be?
It's not a portal, it's just an email address.
And how would you find out what that email address is?
Once the actual address is finished, I will share it with everybody. We'll put it on the town website.
Where on the town?
I don't know yet. That's up
Okay,
to
so the reason I'm asking is that we have several residents in Silver Beach who are prepared to share their test results. And so it would be helpful to know where that is so that
Yeah.
they can do so.
And I suspect that we'll put that onto the WAC page. And
Great.
And that would be something to include on the Silver Beach
you,
website. Yeah.
right, and a link to the link that also, you may want, I'll certainly engage with you on how to label that, how we might want to label that, have Christina lay that out onto the website, so that it's both, we're able to do our focus study with Monantic Peninsula, but, invite Silver Beach folks to share their tests as well.
Well, we're getting responses, people volunteering to do so
Great.
because of
Exactly what I
their
want to see.
concerns.
Meg, you had something you wanted
Yeah,
to?
Meg.
Yeah, so the Office of Water Resources, which is the department of the health department that does the water testing, they now have an online application, so you can apply online, pay with credit card online to do this whole thing
For the test.
for the testing.
Right.
It's done through the county portal, which is a little convoluted, but very doable. So essentially you create an account with the county, then you sign up for the water test, you fill out the form digitally with all your information, submit a credit card, and it's done.
Can you send that
So-
information, and then we can, I'll do it, then I can send it to Anita and the different,
Yeah.
Silver Beach and the Monantic Peninsula, so that,
Anita has it already.
Yeah,
She has
does
that?
have it,
Okay.
Yeah, but what I was, saying in an email to Anita that we could do is kind of creating a sign-up party where, can walk people through how to sign up for the water test.
That's right.
Because the portal's not user-friendly, but it's really easy to get information from it once you're signed up and you have your logins. So if the Monantic Peninsula is already organizing events, you can have someone there to help sign people up. I don't mind coming with my computer, I can look at GIS, get people their numbers, have their tax map numbers, show them how to work through the portal. It's not.
I got an
it's very
idea. Let's see about this. What about if somebody were to record you going through these steps and we put it like on a YouTube, town YouTube, and then people can look at it as they're doing
Yep,
it?
we can definitely do that. I
It
can
might be a
also-
little easier than getting people
Yeah.
together.
I can also try to make a handout that shows you each step with screenshots. It can get a little long after a while, but I can see what I can put together.
All right.
Okay, so, Anita, do you have more questions? Or do you feel
No,
like,
I'd just like to thank this committee for considering the question of saltwater intrusion and other chemical contaminants in the Monantic Peninsula. I know it's been a long road, and I appreciate all of your efforts to help us answer this question.
likewise, we appreciate your coming to us as well. Okay, so, let's do what we said we were going to do and circle around to the water report and what it's telling us. I mean, we do know, the key thing that we see is that the big four wells are all down kind of historically, that overall, on an average basis, we're lower than in the last 10 years and in the spring rather than in the summer. Does that mean something in terms of making a recommendation to the town about what our status is? What our-
That's a good question. Just to go here real quick. One of the things that, in this chart here, which has, that's the last 25 years of data from April. this one here, it says section 3. And I should let everybody know that one of the issues that came out in the past has been the timing of the USGS report was often like a week after our meeting. And there's so we were always looking at data that was kind of 3 weeks, 4 weeks old. Last week, this data reflects the April values, but it is from April 14th. I asked them for, just as a kind of an experiment to see how it works out, I'm asking them to do the evaluations the week before our meeting. And that means that I can provide you with data that's a week old rather than 3 or 4 weeks old.
Greg, can I ask a silly question?
Oh, let's see.
Under,
You know what? That would be 2 then. Yeah, that one you can, and then there's another one.
Okay, so second question, under the April 14th column, the first column, each item here, what should be in the left? Should it be the month? Like there's 705 and 5.37, 5.22.
That's the well height readings as you go down that column.
Right, your wells are going across. So then on.
No, yeah, the wells are going across, and so that the 705, 537, 522,
Yes.
that is the Manhasset well
Right, for months.
for
For
26
months?
readings, for 26 readings of
Each-
April readings.
April
are all
readings, that's
April,
what I
so
want. I just
20
want one person to answer me, so.
That was good that you asked that.
April readings only.
That is April readings, right?
Thank you.
And this is why, what happens is when we set up the percentile, if you look at the very bottom, the percentile reading, it takes all of those 26 readings that we've had from that month, and then we run the percentile, that we analyze for the percentile, what percentile. And there has been, for Monantic, only one April reading that was below what we have this month,
Okay, thank you.
For example, right.
as an example.
Yeah,
And,
and
you know,
so those are years, so that the 7.05 is something like 1999 or 2001.
I would think the 705 would have been 2013 that we had the big yellow? Which was the big,
Oh, in other
or
words,
maybe it was 203, that's it.
Can I,
I forget now.
another possibility, is there can you put in the year of these readings to make it,
Well, but
is it
that-
necessary?
and the question is.
I've never tried to do a percentile that way, but I don't know. I mean,
Okay, I'm just-
these
I'm
are
just throwing it
random.
out there.
Yeah, it's if this, what you're asking for basically is this chart here.
Okay,
Yeah, you know what, the values are being arranged around the median. The median, in other words, it's.
Right.
So
Yeah,
on
I
the
get
left, you
that.
can't put in here.
The central column that runs across.
Yeah, yes.
What's interesting happened this month, and the low 4 readings are all from the big 4, which are the wells that are, a high elevation over the water table. And they have very, very low values. At the wells that are higher, that gain value, are the near shore. And that was, I think, Ken and I kind of have looked at this, and what happens is, because it's relatively short distance between the shaft surface to the well height, the aquifer height, it percolates down very quickly, because it's only got to go down 12 feet. If you take a look at Monantic, for example, I mean, a lot of those values, it's got 6 or 8 feet before you hit the aquifer.
I wonder if there's some way to correct for that so that the interpretation is comparable between these 4 big wells that are in a much thicker element of the aquifer as opposed to some of the near shore test wells, monitored wells.
I think that that's what this does. I mean, you're looking at the aquifer height, right? All right, and I'm not trying, I don't know that we would want to try and figure out that it would take, for example, it would take the Deer Park well.
Right.
Longer time. I'd say, yeah, it would take a little bit longer, yes. You know, but
There's so many variables.
I don't know, I'm just wondering if what we're seeing is just some sort of distortion because of that.
no, I think that, you know.
Very real. This is real.
Yeah, I mean, if you actually spend some time looking at this page, remember the gray bolded values are the current values scattered around the mean.
Yep.
Right?
That is correct.
And all of the big four are at one end, at the very bottom of the chart. And then three of the near shore or the non-big four are below median value, but all the 7 or 8 or 9 of them are above. So there's definitely a pattern being picked
Yeah,
up.
20 years of data, something like that, right?
You're picking up a pattern of,
That's what I want to
that we're
understand.
kind of,
And what does that pattern tell us?
at minimum, it tells us that in the thickest parts of the aquifer, we have the lowest level, the lowest readings, that we've had readings at the very low end of
Very
the
unusual.
spectrum.
This
And
is-
at the nearer shore areas, that hasn't arrived yet. It'll be interesting to see over time, does that, is that a wave that spreads
pushing out
outward?
effect?
We'll be able to, with
That's
a
what I'm getting at.
longitudinal eye view, thinking about this over the course of the next year or two, it'll be interesting to see, does that push out from the big four to the, it's very important thing to kind of be keeping track of. It's the reason for trying to have continuity in our work, right? So, but yeah, so right now what we see is a depression in the center,
Surprising.
a surprising depression in the center.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Does it mean anything? Do we have to make any decision, like we should be on more
Well, I
guard
think one thing to
status?
note is that a lot of people aren't here yet. Yeah, in essence, which affects us a lot in Silver Beach area because of it doesn't take that much draw to make a difference
Yeah.
in the well. That same thing holds for the center though, too, I mean, and everything else from the population density.
I think the next, I'm just looking at my notes from our meeting on March 17th. And what somebody said, I don't know who, but it's a quote, May is a break point for the big four well levels.
Well, not a break, it replaces.
Well, I'm just saying, I've got it in quotes here, so that meant somebody said it.
That's certainly, and if you go to the last page,
Yeah.
these are the raw numbers.
So what I'm saying is that at our next meeting, I think it's really important to understand, if this trend continues, then maybe we need to make a call.
We could make a statement right now in that, in our determination, it looks to us like we're gonna have a very dry start,
We don't have risk
the
of summer.
the recharge time is rapidly approaching the end of it. We've got another month and a half, and looking at the long-term forecast, not much rain is supposed to come
That's right.
down.
About
We had a lot of rainy days, but they were dribbly rains.
Yeah.
We did not get a real strong, decent rain.
I think we should say that.
Yes, and
And
that,
Doug, just to drive home what you were trying to say and what we're all saying here, that's May.
Yeah.
That's May
Exactly.
right there. Okay, so there's the break that you're seeing right there.
There you go.
and these are the raw numbers. This is not adjusted by, this is not a percentile reading of, this is, the measuring tape went down and said that, okay, that this was 2.6 feet.
Right. It's an empirical measure.
Yes.
So
So-
I think
Maybe we've already done it. I see Julie Lane is there. Julie may be in a position to say that the WAC has a great
keeping an eye on
concern
a
that
concern.
we have not had the normal recharge, and that while there's nothing that we would recommend having this minute, we're not going to recommend to the town board to enact something.
we may find ourselves
Everybody
in
ought to
summer.
just have,
We should be
go
conserving,
waste.
conserving now.
Conserve now, we're not gonna have a big impact with just a few people on the island, but going into the summer season, if we continue to have a drier period of time from here to the beginning of the summer season, we're definitely going to be needing to communicate with the community that we're, yeah.
This is a point on this, basically. The 7-year average, basically, for April, over 4 inches, 4.08, okay. I sent this out. April, as of the 14th, no, the 19th, was 1.52 inches. So 1.52 versus 4.08. The year-to-date, typical April, okay, for the last 7 years, basically year-to-date, our average was 16.22 inches. And our number is 9.76
Right.
inches. So, and this is why I'm saying, this is when we should be pretty well in good shape from a replenishment standpoint. The leaves are just coming out, in other words, there's no leaves, no transpiration, okay? No people on the island particularly, okay, to draw water. And this is where we are.
So 3 things could happen. We could have flooding rains, we could have
Yeah.
average, or we could have not very much coming precipitation, in which case it seems like we may find ourselves in an unusual drought situation this summer, if that happens. Yes, Andrew.
So it's almost the 1st of May.
Mhm.
And I suspect, I don't know this for a fact, anecdotally, I suspect that at least with regard to the second homeowners,
Mhm.
landscapers are going to show up.
Mhm.
Oh, they're working.
The landscapers are going to rev things up in the flower beds and the lawns. So when their clients arrive, everything's looking really lush.
Mhm.
If that happens,
Mhm.
if I'm right about that,
And there isn't any rain.
and there isn't any rain, and that happens from this starting point,
Could be bad.
we're in a bad situation.
Correct. We're paying attention to that. This is we're going into this setup for an unusually bad situation.
So does it make sense to message this situation to the professional landscaping community and the island generally? Like, hey, look, we could be in a tough spot, and please act accordingly.
I copy Walter Richards, by the way, on my numbers, so for every month, but he's the only person.
I think that's a hard sell, because this is when they're making their money.
Right.
And they're not gonna do plantings and have people come out and the plantings be dead, so not to say that it's not a good effort, I'm just not sure how
Okay,
we could do it effectively.
all right. I'm not suggesting what I would call an enforceable order.
Mhm.
I'm suggesting a message. And some people may say, I'm going to do it anyway. But some people may actually hold back. But also, in any case, we will have set the stage around the issue in a significant and timely way now,
Okay,
if we
so
have to act further. So that's my question.
And let's let that stay and let's keep this topic open. It's a very good segue into the next item, which is the irrigation brochure
Yeah, that's,
that the irrigation committee has been working. And Lisa, I'll let you.
yeah, well, I mean,
Tell
I
us a
was
little
not
about-
necessarily part of the committee.
Sean, by the
directly.
way, apologizes. He had a plan to
I
be
was-
away for 6 days. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I was hoping Sean would be here, but he's not going to
Yeah,
be.
no, he can't be.
So this guide, the homeowner guide to irrigation, was created by the subcommittee. Sean Davy put it together with the help of Kim Patel, who also did the fertilizer and lawn care brochure.
And input from Walter, and input from Jay, and input from Stella, so a number of people really marked this up pretty nicely, and he did a brilliant job of synthesis.
So it's, and I talked to Mary Ellen McGahey because she brought this up to me about the difficulty that the building department has with the irrigation law. And Sean ran it by her. She thought it looked pretty good. So, because they always have questions about irrigation systems, and enforcement's going to be the issue. Benefits of irrigation, and risks of excessive irrigation. I did ask Mary Ellen, she wants to put this out with the next group of permits that they have just approved, the building department.
To distribute
And-
this with the permit.
Yes, so I said, when will you be sending out those permits? She said mid-May. So my question is, can this be actually published by mid-May, so she can send this out with the permits that go out? I don't know. I don't know if anyone here has that information. I don't know, Peter, if you do, but that's what she'd like to shoot for, is getting it out there. And as you can see, they talk about conserving, they talk about dry wells, and there's a lot of good information here that the consumer can do, the homeowner, to take care of their water needs. I will tell you that if you go around the island and you do any kind of walking or riding, and you look at privets, established privet, they still have irrigation hoses in them. The biggest problem is getting them removed. And I'm not sure how that's going to be handled, but removing those old irrigation systems is going to be a little bit problematic. But at least this is in the homeowners, and to your point, Andrew, the homeowners and the people who care will care, and they will abide by it.
You know, it's
Recommendations.
interesting, in a place like the Heights, which has a water system, if you boost your use of water, they are on you in a second.
Stella's right there.
And I've.
They're monitoring, they're able to monitor.
Yeah, they do. And they reach out to you and they say, well, what's going on? And it really compels you to look at your system and kind of look back in time and say, well, what was going on? So it's interesting because we don't have any such monitoring on
No,
well
and the
waters
same
anywhere
thing-
else on the island.
With West Neck Water.
Same thing?
We have rules, and I'm going to change
They're
this
aware.
clause here, because the West Neck Water District has in its rules and regulations only hand watering. We have to go back as a committee and review what we're doing. And do we need to change that? But we pay for water. So you're not going to be extravagant with your watering when you're paying for it. And that's the benefit to having metered water and paying for water.
So it's
Because it's a
really,
natural conservation.
Any kind of a meter on your well.
so if you look
Yes.
at the looking forward section of this document, the third item is consider installing a meter on your pump to better understand your water usage and help identify leaks. We could go even further with this. We shouldn't in this conversation, but, being able to monitor remotely those meters. Do different communities want to have more intensive programs around metering, even though people are on well water? That's something that individual communities could work on together. So I think it's really worth reading, and Lisa asked the important question, which is, can we get this out for, in this next period? And I think this is pretty close to being ready. The committee has gone through it a number of different times, marked it up. Sean has integrated changes. I do believe, Amber, correct me if I'm wrong, we have a few $1,000s in a production budget? Well, I'd ask our committee. Okay, Meg, Gordon, I believe we have some arts and crafts money, I believe we do, so double check us on that.
Right,
I think we have a few $1,000s in order to print this.
This is the final product, right?
That's the fertilizer.
That was for, so they're based
The
on each
irrigation
other.
is going to look very similar.
Okay.
Because they're both put out by the WAC. So Tim Bertel, he does all of this out.
right.
the
No,
format.
Tim helped
That's
Sean
okay.
with this all for us.
We get it.
I hear, I missed the part about water.
And
There is some editing, and I'm going to get a hold of Sean when he gets back. So a little bit of editing that needs to happen before it's really printable.
Right, but let's work quickly when he comes back, because, so this code takes us to a list of landscapers.
And does it really?
It did, I just did it with my phone,
Okay.
however, it's not, it actually says it's the town, it's not labeled exactly right.
Right, so we
Because
need
it's a
to do
list
some
of-
corrections on it.
And look at each of, the other two QR codes, let's just make sure that they're set right to go. because once it's published, it's published, and this is very useful stuff for people.
So I would say that probably if Sean can get this done, and he's pretty
fast.
good at it, in the next week or so, I don't know when he's getting back, then we can take it to, I'll talk to Tim, and Tim does the publishing.
And Meg will confirm
And
that
we'll
we
find
have
out how much money we
some printing budget for, because we never spend our government.
$3,000 in your communication.
There we go. 3K for, this will make a nice brochure. So let's get something just like this, and then my thought was that if the drought is persisting, maybe we could have some sort of a paper
Put a sticker
insert,
on it.
some sort of insert or piece of paper that could be, if we're giving these out, they could go along with, we're currently in a drought situation.
You don't want to make that a part of this, though.
Not a part of this, because this should be regardless of what.
But that's very interesting. Should the drought, the status, should we put something in with regards to a graphic for people?
No.
But we don't even know which one we're using yet, do we? So
Right,
forget
no,
that.
so
Yeah.
just, again.
It's pretty damn busy as it is.
I know, you're right.
Yeah, if we get, 2-3 weeks from now, we're ready to distribute these, or we're bringing them this summer and we're in an emergency situation, I would just suggest that, it's folded, you could have a paper insert saying current status is XYZ.
You could.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
also with regards to this, I think that a digital format needs to go out, because that is what I've asked all of those of you who are HOAs to distribute the fertilizer.
Yep,
Can we segue to that real quickly?
we have the fertilizer on our website.
Good, because
We'll put this on as well.
I've given each one of us a pile of 20 brochures that am asking you if you could disseminate them. That would be helpful, because we have quite a few left, and I can't do it all myself.
So,
So perhaps, Andrew, you could take yours to the Heights, the Shelter on Heights office,
Fresh Pond's gonna get
Just-
this.
wherever you can.
Yep.
There's some out here. I went to the hardware store. They had theirs hidden, so I have to go down and sort of negotiate with them to be more apparent. And then I think I also sent each one of you a link about the study that was done with regards to the efficacy of this Suffolk County law with regards to irrigation. And this testing was done in a couple communities. They went to Lowe's and different businesses to see if they were posting the moratorium dates. Some were, some weren't. And the outcome wasn't terribly positive as to how businesses were complying with the Suffolk County law. How can we make this better? How can we take what we're creating and make it better? I think it's something we can just think about on an individual level.
So it seems like you're transitioning, and we should transition to WAC community outreach.
Yep, that's where I'm going.
Yep. So, and actually that, one of the things that, among the thing, between landscaping and irrigation, Doug, you were beginning to do some work on an event perhaps that we could have coming up this summer?
Yes, I have been in more touch with, various parties. The Perfect, what's it called? Perfect Earth Project.
Perfect, Earth.
They're very happy to have an event on Shelter Island. There's no cost to us. I have discussed it with Tim Pertell and Charity Roby. I don't think that it's something that the reporter would really sponsor, because the format is a little different. Hopefully, we would have Edwina Von Gaal as the sort of moderator. And then we would have a landscaper and perhaps someone else, maybe Jenny Zoller, talking about wildlife and the depredation, and also the impact of lighting on insects and birds, et cetera, et cetera. They have put forward some dates, which I don't know if they necessarily work for us, because they're more sort of from now until early June. I'm thinking that the ideal location would be the Presbyterian Church.
I think so too.
People know that there are big events there for all sorts of reasons. They have parking. So even though there've been some other institutions that have put their hand up and said, gee, we'd host it here. I just need to find the email with the dates.
She did come out last year,
And it wasn't well
and
attended.
it was not well attended, so
And Tim was really,
it needs to be very
upset
well
about that.
publicized
And, you know, because she is so inspirational.
and renowned.
Yes, that, you know, we should have a big turnout.
Yep.
May 15, 17, 24, and 29, as well as June 5 and 7. You know, maybe a Saturday, I was thinking, you know, a weekend. I don't know how that works with the church's calendar or what they have going on, but
We can check easily that.
yeah.
My feeling is Saturday, there's so much competition with what goes on on the weekends.
Yep.
That's why I thought Thursday really worked, because you got a lot of people out on a night that they.
Is that when the reporter events are?
No, Thursday is the night that
We
we
have at the
Had-
water.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's a good idea.
events.
That's a good idea, yeah.
The Thursday, usually 5:30.
Yeah, well,
Uh-huh,
yeah.
okay,
So, it was a popular night, it seemed like.
okay. Well, let me run this down a little bit further, but, you know, I think it would be ideal to have, you know, a knowledgeable landscaper there to comment about some of these things. And maybe someone that could talk about wildlife. The other thing is that at these events, they have tables from these various environmental organizations. They're handing out these brochures, so I don't know which this one is from, but
Would this be a good thing to have during the
Eco Fair.
Eco Fair?
I think this is a standalone event, I think. I mean, Eco Fair, everyone's sort of roaming around, et cetera. I don't want to dilute attendance if we're actually going to go to the trouble to have this. I think we want to be, you know, really focused. Oh, this organization is called Change Hampton. But you can't disagree with little things that say, do you really want to drink your lawn? Having to do with water.
That's brilliant.
Toward a new land ethic, practices and principles for ecological and human health, having to do with insect and bird health.
These are good.
All right, well, so it would be really, yeah.
So I will, you know, if there's something we need to make a decision on, I will report to you, Peter, and then.
Okay, all right, well, it seems to me like you're right, that we want something beyond mid-June, we want something into the, end of June or July even.
Yeah,
And the Thursday, I think Lisa's right, that the Thursday is a good thing to target, and the question is whether each of the, both for the speaker and the church and, or whatever the venue is, if that works.
Well, originally, the reason
And,
that Thursday was good was because we began this 3 years ago at the library. And
Right.
Jessica remembers, because I used to talk to her about it.
right.
So the library's free night was Thursday, correct, Jessica? And it just ended up being fortuitous for them and us. So it can move to another night, but that's how it started.
Yeah, cool. I mean, originally I thought, oh, it'd be.
Wednesday is sailing, so forget
For,
that.
for the library, but we don't have that space.
Yeah.
so again, like the Thursday, just, consistency has its own value, so let's start there. If it's something else works better, great.
Do we want to decide then on literally monthly dates right now? That would be good, so that we can sort of set them aside. I think last year we started in June, which could be why it wasn't so very well attended. So,
It's a busy month for people, trying to wrap up kids at school, college graduation.
It's a hard month.
so you want to start in July?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Start with that.
July, August, September, and I don't think we went into October, but maybe we did.
Well, let's, if we find that we have more programming then we can add, but let's start with 3 dates, the July, August, and September dates. So Lisa, I'm going to trust you to now.
I'm going to say
pull
July
forward.
17th, if everybody wants to write this down, so that I have accountability.
7/17.
And then maybe the third Thursday of every month, which would be August 21st,
21.
and then September 18th. And then if we find that we want to run more programs,
We can start inserting them.
yeah.
Okay.
So would July 17th, the one that you'd want to talk to Edna?
17.
See if Edna and the church would be good with this July.
Well, I was thinking for June, the 26th
We decided not to do June.
Okay, but the June 26th is,
could work.
could work, and
for
it's,
this, as opposed to our other topics.
Oh, so this is separate.
No, I'm just saying, well, part of it is Edwina's availability, and I don't know what that is.
All right.
well, again, if six, you just stay coordinated with Lisa. If 6/26 winds up working for the church and for Edna, and you're starting to consolidate around that, let us know.
Is that
Lisa.
a graduation weekend, Meg?
I think it is.
It's
From the USGS
data from
Yeah.
Not that that matters a tremendous amount, but,
Oh, it does. It does.
Not the borders of the tribe.
Let me double check.
I just want to make sure that if you're going to set something up with her, it's successful this year
Yeah.
as opposed to last year.
I hear you. I hear you.
But again, I mean, start with Edna's availability. And then just make sure, I mean, because Lisa can easily adjust the 7/17 to be 7/10 or whatever.
Well, it's also the church.
Yeah, the
It's-
27th is the school's graduation.
Okay, so that was,
27.
the 26th would be,
Is that a problem?
I don't know that necessarily is.
I think we're drawing on it, we're asking for a
It's
different.
early for the people who are coming back.
Yeah, you're right.
I know.
Then you get into July 3rd. That's,
Third,
Not
10th, 3rd, 10th, and 17th become, 3rd is not good, probably, right?
yeah, then 10th or 17th.
10th or 17th. and
Well, we've set aside the 17th already for an event, so that could very well use.
Could be the event.
And just if there's a conflict, let Lisa know, because we're early enough to make adjustments.
Okay,
Okay? Then we should be thinking about what's the August event going to, what's the focus going to be, and what's the September focus going to be. Decide on that now, but think about where we need to be. I will say that I have now been through the process of putting in my filtration system and my reverse osmosis system, and it has followed pretty much the script that Andrew wrote at the firehouse, and so I think that revisiting.
Does he want to do that again? I don't think so.
And what was your experience?
Well,
do you want to do it again, Peter?
I think that it's important, we're at another point in history. And it's important to come back and say, okay, look, and the focus may differ because perhaps the focus is more on what people can do privately. Sure. But, having been through it and seeing what percolates out of that, it seems to me that many community members are going to be very, very interested in, okay, what can I do if the town is not pursuing an alternative approach for me? Okay.
You skipped over the mission statement discussion, which I really want to get to.
Yeah, so we have a few moments here. If you want to sort of, before we wrap, let's.
Okay, so last time I said that there was a mission statement on the sidebar at our page, our webpage. And I was confused because the mission statement was also, this mission statement that Andrew had brought to us, it's not really a mission statement in his words. So it's just, which one is it? What do we want to put as a mission statement? Let's clarify, because so much information that we have on our webpage, I don't know if anybody reads anything. So it's like, who are we? What are we? So this, you have a package of this, if you want to just look at it. All right, it's here. And I think that this was born out of the GWSMP. Should we throw this out? And my next question is going to be, and this is probably a question for Christina, everything that is on the webpage, all of that information, is it put on there chronologically? What are the parameters to the information and how it's posted? Because I can't always make sense of it. And Andrew's mission, strategy, policies, and process isn't even on our webpage that I can see anymore. So I need to figure out, or we need to figure out, where do things go? Where do they come from? What's important? If anybody is looking for information, how do they find it? What's relevant? What's not? So the question is, how relevant is this?
Right.
This is what's on there now,
This is on the sidebar. It says WAC mission statement.
these 4 or 5 pages.
Yeah, this is, and again, I think this was born out of the ground and surface water management plan, but I don't know because it's not dated.
Yeah,
Looks
it
like it
doesn't-
is because of the marking on it.
So what do we want to, do we want to, is this null and void? Is this something we can
Yeah, I
make into
I
an
don't think this is,
update?
I don't think this is adequate as a mission statement. I do think that it's a larger conversation that I'm happy to schedule for our next meeting.
Yeah, we've had so many mission statements over the
Right.
years, believe me. Yeah.
But the broad outlines of how we see our mission are very important. I think that we're all in agreement that drinking water is ensuring safe and adequate drinking water has to be one of our top mission items. There has been more conversation about how we relate to surface waters, how we relate to irrigation practices and so forth.
Okay, my question is, putting information that's not relevant or accurate on our webpage. If this is no longer relevant, then I will ask that it be just posted in the back. Go ahead, Meg.
So everything that's on your webpage was transferred from the previous page. So the previous page might have been hidden under a tab or something. So when they went and created the new webpage and they uploaded all the new information, they did their best to organize it however they understood. So if there's something on that page that you don't think should be there, it's outdated, or we need to move it into maybe an archive section of your page, you can even print out the webpage and draw on that and let us know what stays, what goes, what needs to get archived, if we need to create a new heading for something. Just do it that way so that if there's something physical for me to go and sit with Christina and go, okay, here's the deal.
Okay.
This doesn't seem to work here, this is old and outdated, can we put it in like an archive folder or just get rid of it from the website, it'll stay in SharePoint. But I think that's the most practical way to go about it. Sure.
Yes.
Fix it.
But I would also say the committee should be posted this was first if you're making a request to a town to change the website. So like, I'm suggesting we remove this, circle,
Or
things that you
move
want.
it.
Remove or move, communicate that to the committee first. If people have comments, great, and then it goes.
Okay, that's what I'm doing
Christina
here.
and
So what do we
Max.
want to do with this?
Okay. Okay. Yes, Andrew?
A mission and a process statement. Let's just, a mission, vision, values, process, way of working with it.
I don't know if this is that.
Lends itself to be actual prose.
Like with the
Subject, verb, object, think Hemingway. Simple. PowerPoints to me leave too much for the reader to make their own interpretations. It's actually a pretty serious piece of work. And I think the way to action it is for several of us to, like you instructed us to go through all those abstracts, for several of us to go through everything that's on our website and either cast out what we don't think is relevant and distill what we think is relevant and bring it back to the committee. Say, okay, this is it. This is refreshed.
Yep, I think it's a great idea.
And having suggested it, I suppose I'm Yeah,
I am too, I am volunteering as well.
okay.
And I will too, you know, I started this.
So we have a subcommittee to
Fine.
start to do something.
So, yeah, okay, that's good.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
I-
is it all easy to find?
You go to our webpage, you'll
Yeah.
see on the right, there are all of these documents.
Right.
But they're not chronologically,
Not well
or
organized.
they're not organized in
do a
any particular
search.
way.
You can do a search also on our system.
But I think what we want to do, Ken, is we want to put what's relevant and current and put the date on our webpage. We
I
have
know
those
where you're coming
documents.
from, I'm just saying we have a lot to
Yeah,
choose from.
Jessica and I have been working on, keeping, we had our discussion documents that started to grow quite long because
Yeah.
we weren't, so we started weeding it out. But this goes beyond the discussion document section of our
Yes.
website.
And you did such a beautiful job with this,
You're,
your mission. So
okay, all right.
creating one that was an all-encompassing, and to Peter's point of making sure that we also covered surface waters with.
So it's 4:05. Just going to say, so Greg has to leave right now. I appreciate if people have to go. We won't quite close yet, but we'll be moving toward closing. But yes, it's important that I will have it on the agenda next time that we discuss what are the broad
Okay, fine.
outlines of our mission before we start to compose Hemingway it.
Oh, maybe we'll take a cut at it.
Please?
Okay, makes you think.
Yeah, it does.
Right.
It could focus the discussion.
Correct.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay. Sounds like we've had a good meeting. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground in a pretty tight way. So therefore, in that spirit,
Do we want to summarize?
you mean like old business, new business?
Well,
or
I mean,
some-
just who's doing what here? Does everybody know what they're doing?
Uh,
I'm just gonna say, you know that you're gonna give out the fertilizer.
I know I'm giving out the
You're gonna do that.
fertilizers to my community,
Okay,
my community.
we're looking at mission statement. Doug is gonna follow through with Edwina.
Yeah.
Joe's gonna get back to us with the USGS. I come forward, okay? I need
All right.
this for my own brain.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. All right. Any last needs to address? Motion to adjourn? All in favor? Let's go. All right.
Something I want you